Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
All right. To follow up with after Thierry's presentation, I couldn't help myself but thinking we should make the most of it and have a discussion to talk about crypto in the Netherlands and the politics around crypto. So to that point, I would like to invite Justin Bonds, Steve Peter, and Robert Valentine to join us on stage for this panel discussion. Thank you. Join. Yeah. We're going to be tight. We'll make this happen.
Yeah, of course. Here you go.
All right. First of all, thank you all for joining this panel. I wanted to make this a conversation, really, where we could just have an open conversation, because we know there's a lot of things going on. You talked about a totalitarian state. Robert, you talk a lot about it on your podcast. Steve, I want to hear more about Monflow and your opinion on this, and Justin as well. Let's dive into it. What are your opinions currently? What is the state of Dutch politics and link to cryptocurrencies today? I know, big question, but let's jump into it.
I think that at this moment there's not much politicians indulging in crypto, except maybe for Thierry and the Forum for Democracy. So it's still very niche. I think people don't know. I think politicians don't care. I don't think they even know what blockchain is. So I think we're far away from what you might now see in the US, where you see there's strategic research bills being put forward. I have no knowledge of anything like this happening in the Netherlands or in Europe. So I think it's we're far away. We're very far away.
I'll say also, I'll speak as someone who runs a cryptocurrency fund in the Netherlands, the oldest fund in Europe now. A lot of the regulations makes our lives so much more difficult. You know, it's so much more expensive to operate in a country like this. The amount of we pay in taxes, the amount of admin, all the extra rules and regulations have made our lives so much more difficult. And certainly, since we're talking about the state of Dutch politics, I mean, it has to be said, Alexey, that they put one of our people, one of our coders, in jail for over a year, and he's still fighting that battle, is a travesty. That makes a lot of us feel very unsafe in this country.
Steve.
Okay. In politics, knowledge is indeed very, very limited. I also work a lot. Part of Monflow is being developed in Cambodia.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, at the moment, knowledge about crypto is more advanced in Cambodia, Vietnam, than in the Netherlands. So, as a comparison, we can say we are rich people, healthy people, but they are doing the job. Secondly, I'm very happy, by the way, that in this panel now we have a politician, and my background is banking. I've been 15 years in banking, so I'm one of those stealing guys, getting very rich, had a beautiful car and house and everything from your money. Thank you very much. It even made me professor, and then later on in the phase, let's say about 25 years ago, I started I kept on libertarian because I started in '68 and the revolts in that period, but I found out that technology would give us possibilities. And everybody is always complaining about regulations, but sorry guys, I am a CRO, I'm the risk officer of Monflow. I am now in the process of getting an official license for Europe to offer crypto services. And yes, it is a pain in the ass. But the funny thing is, the only way to change something is to eat it up from inside. If you just kick from the outside, nothing will happen. I mean, they are like stone. Institutes, big companies like ABN AMRO, like politicians, the guys working with him. When you talk to them, the next day they do exactly the same. So it's no use. So the only way I always have changed banking was from inside. And I'm doing that again with Monflow. And yes, is there tax problems? Do you need some measures? All that kind of stuff? Yes. But you just have to do it. Sorry.
I think I would like to respond to that because I think it's an interesting stance, and I think I disagree. Besides being a podcaster, I've been the chairman of the Libertarian Party in the Netherlands for almost 7 years. I've been the frontrunner for the parliamentary elections twice, in 2021 and 2017. I've worked for the city of Amsterdam for 9 years, worked on deregulation, worked on cutting spending. And I noticed that trying to change it from the inside is not working for me. I mean, I quit politics. I don't envy you and your job, because I do notice also during campaigning, people, they have no idea. Like, they have no idea about basic fundamental economic principles. So to explain them that our system is wrong, like it goes over their head. And I think the beauty of blockchain and crypto is that it is a challenge from outside of the system, from outside of politics, from outside of government. And I think it will change it from the outside, actually. If you want to change from the inside, you will hit roadblocks. I tried for 9 years in the government, and I tried for 7 years in politics. And no, I don't think this is the way to go forward.
Actually, I'm going to somewhat agree with you there, Robert. My experience in crypto is that a lot of crypto's success has come from the grassroots, actually. And I feel like a lot of the banking institutions, a lot of the government world are really just playing catch up to what us crypto natives are doing in this space. And I think that's important to understand. And I'll use this opportunity also just to add, and it's actually somewhat echoing your speech from earlier, Teray, that I really do think that cryptocurrency is somewhat the natural extension of the tradition of Western political philosophy. In that, like, if you think about the divisions of powers, decentralization really is the natural extension of the division of powers. So cryptocurrency really is about freedom. This is a freedom money movement, and it is a way to peacefully and voluntarily opt out of current systems. And if enough people do that non-violently, then we can absolutely change everything. And we don't need the bankers' permissions. We don't need the government's permissions to do this. It's very important to remember this.
But still, you have to get the people adapt to it.
Yes. Correct.
And I fully agree. The funny thing about this whole blockchain, what I see happening, for example, in Cambodia, to give you an example. 5 years ago, they had 40 banks. All those banks had their own systems and were transferring money in between by their own. The central bank made a decision to implement a blockchain. And they added an app for the population on the blockchain so that everybody individually could move money around.
Like it might be a blockchain, but it's not a cryptocurrency, right? Like, that's not the revolution. It's just a central bank solution. It's not the same thing.
Let me finish. Now they implemented gold, and the discussion already has been made, and we are ready for it to enter the stablecoin in there.
No, what I mean is that if the government can censor transactions, if the government can monitor...
No,
this is where we get into the...
You are defining something else. Then you say, whether is it monitoring, or is it made to monitor, or is it something that people can use to crypto, and then the next phase will be that you make it independent of the government.
The government won't do that, though, right? Like, people don't disempower themselves. It tends to be a rule in history. When you look at history, if you're ever in a situation where you rely on people to give up their own power, it won't happen. It's incentives. There's rare cases where there's like an emperor or a dictator that maybe stepped down, but those are the exceptions to the rule. To have a plan that relies on people giving up their power, I think, is not a very realistic plan.
But let's applaud Cambodia for implementing blockchain, right? We do.
But
it is centralized. We know from a get-go that there's someone there coordinating it, and that could censor transaction between these 40 banks. Like, it's blockchain, but it's not blockchain.
There's a saying, or something that I'm at least saying to my friends often: we're never going to get such a great lockdown anymore. And the thing is that was an opportunity that I think we missed. Because that during COVID, during the lockdown, and you curfew, you couldn't leave your house, and you had to get all these. That was a fantastic opportunity, fantastic moment to push for mass adoption of a privacy-based cryptocurrency. We could have done it then. We missed it. But I think this is the kind of thinking that we need. We need to think in terms of, okay, there is going to, at some point, an opportunity is going to arise, and we need to be ready for it. We need to be there to get people to download such an app somewhere, or have a particular other type of hardware that enables us to make these payments to one another, and transfer from the fiat system to the blockchain-based crypto system, and maybe there are brilliant people here that are seeing other opportunities arising shortly, but
well, I can add to that.
I miss the lockdowns, guys. I miss them.
Let's not wish for that. Yes.
I can add to that everybody is now talking about this financial area, but one of the areas we are now developing in Cambodia as well is the education area. The reason is that certificates and all that kind of stuff is now being used mostly in central stations, education institutes, making a lot of money out of it. That's not necessary. So we are building up, that's why we first made Monflow as a kind of payment structure based on crypto. The next phase will be that we link it to self-sovereign identity agents in your telephone, also containing your human capital. So all the certificates and information which is now being stored in LinkedIn and all of the other platforms, get it out.
So the government can know everything.
So it sounds like an amazing honeypot to me.
Oh yeah, it is. No, I'm.
It's like
I love
like 4chan on steroids, and then.
Exactly. No, I love honeypots because immediately they were jumping on me because they saw that the market was being disrupted. And they said, we are not going to allow you to store all those certificates and things like that. But I said, sorry, but there is no law against it, so I just will continue. And then later on, when I have a payment system and I have a system that I can determine what kind of education I would like to have, independent of your industry or whatnot, then we are really going to a self-sovereign.
I mean, it strikes me as a bit ironic, because if you do a good job educating people, they'll stop using that permission system, right?
If I really do a very good job for permission, they will not need that system anymore of certificates and all the other stuff.
You can agree on that?
Yeah, fully. But it's again this, how can I get the adoption? Because at the moment, every crazy American or even Asian company asks for certificates. And they collect it. And
here's the thing, not in crypto. See, in crypto, in crypto, hold on, your identity is a key. If you're talking about native crypto, you don't need to have a real world identity. Your identity is on the blockchain, and you can interact with any financial protocol on these blockchains without permission, without identity, without censorship. That's part of the power of the system. That's part of what makes these systems so efficient and so free and so liberty preserving. I think once we start layering, look, I'm all for some compromises and some context, but I mean, we're speaking at a crypto conference here, and I think it really needs to be understood that crypto fundamentally is permissionless. Crypto fundamentally should be private. Crypto, as Tariq correctly put it, is democratizing. It is supporting a freedom, and it very much sits in that tradition.
Okay, fully agree. Right?
But,
yes. No. The only thing is, how do we get to that point that everybody has this unique key in the blockchain?
We've been working on that question.
We've been doing this for a long time, right? Like,
but it's true. It's a fair question, right? It's a fair. We talked about it earlier in the privacy panel as well. We were talking about all these different privacy cryptocurrencies. We have different solutions, and it's difficult. And we're still hashing it out, literally. And we're still trying to figure out what is the best plan forward. And I think, Thierry, when you're talking about when COVID happened, and maybe some adoption happened, I think some people, maybe we didn't have the biggest wave of new people coming to crypto, and it was just dark times and people were afraid. But I think at the same time, I think it woken up a lot. A lot of people from that point now know not to trust authority. Or maybe that has changed. That gave me hope. It's maybe a slither of hope, but it gave me hope that maybe in the future, when we mentioned that COVID and those lockdowns were possible, we're not now so crazy as crypto people to say, oh, don't trust the government, be careful, da-da-da-da-da. Now there's a concrete moment in time in history where everybody can relate to that feeling of an authoritarian government and system locking down people. So that's a common metaphor, sadly, that we can use for the future. So, but to go back...
And also, but I mean, people forget very quickly.
True.
So COVID now feels like a bad dream, right?
PTSD.
It's memory hold. It didn't actually happen to you.
Yeah.
It's just a dream that you had. It's something you imagine could have happened to you, but it didn't, because look, we live in freedom, right? And the same is true with freedom of speech. Generally, I think this is one of the things that we're not talking enough about. If Elon Musk hadn't opened up Twitter, we would still not be. I mean, we wouldn't have Yay, right? And we wouldn't know about a lot of things that came out about COVID and about so many other things. So and this is just a tiny fraction. I mean, Elon is with 1 foot out of the system and 1 foot definitely in, with all the subsidies that he gets for his rather fake companies and all this. So it's a limited hangout. It's not an actually completely free marketplace of ideas. But already that tiny bit of freedom we got, boom! It had an immense effect. And so and there's this is not there to last. The government is not enthusiastic to continue to protect freedom of speech at that level. And I think this is the other thing that we should be concerned about. And earlier there was a little bit of talk about privacy coins and freedom of speech platforms. But I do think there could be an overlap with regards to that, and we should think about developing them. Yeah, platforms like that.
I'll just add, because we talked about what is the solution. I actually think the solution is very simple, and I'm going to keep it short. But there, you're also right when you said most people don't care. We need to build products that people actually want to use because it benefits them in their lives. Yeah. If we're not building usable products that are better than the current status quo, this revolution is not going anywhere. I just wanted to just drive that one home.
And the point I made about Yay and other things is that freedom of speech is only something that a tiny minority actually cares about, like privacy. And in that sense, there's an analogy with high art, which was the most important thing for me, most important motivating thing to go into politics, because I'm an aesthetically sensitive person, and I felt incredibly bad about the horrors of modern architecture. And I thought we have to get into politics to change that. But high art is both the essence of civilization and also something that is interesting only for a tiny percentage of the people. Mm-hmm. And the same is true with privacy and freedom of speech. These are naturally elite phenomena. And this is the great paradox that we're dealing with. Democracy is a system that is about the masses, yet the fundamental ideals of democracy are interesting and important only for a tiny percentage of the population that ultimately, of course, the rest of the population benefits from, but it's not something that they would want to fight for.
I would like to steer the conversation with something that you mentioned, Justin, earlier about bringing it back to the Netherlands. Alexey was arrested in August 2022. It created a crazy, massive chilling effects where I had people not wanting to come to ETHDam because they were afraid of being arrested. Developers telling me they were stopping projects that they were building because, again, I don't want to go to jail. Like, that became kind of a weird, awful meme. I considered maybe we should not stay in the Netherlands. This is not a country that welcomes innovation and freedom. From your perspective, like different perspective, how did this land of supposed innovation, how could this happen here? And how can we prevent it? And keep in mind that Alexey is now released on not bail, but like he's still fighting his appeal. He's free of movement here in the Netherlands, but this is not over yet. Can we make the case here or not for the Netherlands for crypto? The four of you.
Can I start? Did you read the book Why Nations Fail from Ace Goebel?
No.
That he's got a Nobel Prize for it. It's quite clear when political institutes start working together with economic institutes and really closely work together, that they are making the regulations together and the laws together, it's the end of a nation. He has shown it with in Korea and all kinds of areas. They took the data and they analyzed it. And that's exactly what's happening now in the Netherlands. What we see is that economic institutes, the bigger companies and everything else, and the politics are working so close together that innovation in fact stops. And that's the end. It's so sorry, but it happens. And it happened with the Greeks, and it happened with the Romans, and it happened with, presumably also with the Americans. So
crony capitalism / corporatism, right? That's
well, yeah, well, you can call them economic nations, or there are all kinds of terms for that. So that's why I went to a kind of Southeast Asia where everybody is saying corruption is there. But the nice thing about corruption is that economic influence and politics influence are separated, because economics is much more important than the politics itself, I found. And I taught in China, I had the same feeling there. I've been there teaching for 10 years, and the students said, please, professor, don't use that site because they listen to you and they record everything. I said, okay, but how can you live here? Innovation in China doesn't happen from state level, but in family level still. And that's what we in the Netherlands is gone. It's completely gone. In the United States, when I teach there, it was gone. Whole California, Stanford area is the same method all over, and it's slowly squeezed because economic and politics is coming together, so innovation is stopped. So when you have to find out where to go, Netherlands is not the best place for innovation, no.
I mean, I would rather be in the Netherlands than CCP-controlled China, if I'm being honest here. There's a big difference in terms of actual civil liberties between those two places still, right? We can at least appreciate that here, right?
Oh, it depends where you are and how you operate and things like that. I had a wonderful time there and a lot of freedom with my students.
I am not comfortable in that country myself, but yeah, to each their own, I suppose.
So, in order to preserve or to recreate some kind of innovation enthusiasm in the Netherlands, I think it's important to understand how politicians think, because they are interested in society to the extent that they can benefit or control it, benefit from it or control it. Those are the two categories that can motivate politicians in a democratic age. Exceptions left alone, but left aside. But this is the general pattern. So again, I think if the crypto space would be able to develop real life applications of their technology that might be of interest to either of these activities that politicians are interested in, these motivating factors, then you'll have their ear. Then they'll move along. So this is what happened with, like, for example, Facebook. When it became something that ordinary people actually cared about, Zuck had a seat on the table. And that's the thing that I think something like Monflow or another like your capital firm or something like that, if it becomes something that has a role in society that normal people use, that normal people care about, then that's when democratic politicians will become interested in it, and not before.
Okay, but for now we realize that in crypto we don't want to give more control or benefit politicians.
No, but imagine there's something that. If there's 500,000, if this wouldn't be 80 people, but it would be 5,000 people with another 30,000 people watching on a live stream, then politicians would think, hey, these are voters. So it's very nerds like us are inclined to think, what is the truth? And then I'm going to speak the truth and people will be convinced by the truth, right? Because the arguments, this is not how normal people operate. It's not how politicians operate. There are other, there are other things that make them take certain decisions, and we have to understand that.
I have an idea, just real quick. Legalize political campaign contributions in crypto. That might change the tune of some politicians, at least. Yeah. So
we were the first to
here?
open that, but it's yeah. The KYC on the backside is very complicated, and how do you know what the source of the funds is? And because if it's a proper blockchain transaction, if there's an exchange in between you might be able to know, because then the exchange has done the KYC. But otherwise, you're not allowed to accept the funds, and you have to donate them to the government.
Yeah, that's not what I meant with legalized. So I think we still have a bit of a way to go then. Therefore, yeah.
But maybe I can make another proposal. Is there anybody here who has a pension? When we make pension fund really controllable by yourself,
Wow.
then something is going to happen, because then politicians are getting very much afraid. Because the amount of money in the Netherlands in the pension funds is so enormously high, it will have an immediate impact when part of the pension fund is self-controlled in crypto.
So I can speak to that. I speak to a lot of pension funds as a fund, and they have zero interest in investing in crypto anytime soon. Their pension funds are going to be like the last people that are ever going to invest in crypto, based on my anecdotal experience.
That's why it has to be individually steered. I mean, now pension funds are always either your employer or it's some other organization. But the new law allows you to start steering your pension fund yourself. So just make your own fund and make it a pension fund, which is completely steered by and is in blockchain.
Is Monflow going to do that anytime soon?
Steve strikes again with.
I am building it. Yeah. I'm building it. I'm having discussions now, even with the administrators and everybody else, because I think this will really, have some impact. Yeah.
Another time where you want to disrupt another place, right?
I will continue disrupting. I really love disrupting.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard that one yet. Decentralize your pension fund. So that would be maybe someone here will build it. All right. You want to say something?
No, I was just actually wanted to ask a question about being interesting to politicians. So should we organize our own lobby groups or NGOs with our crypto funds and start addressing our interest to politicians? Is that what you're proposing just now before?
Well, that's part of it, but also politicians need to see that there's some power behind it. I think they would want to see some massive adoption of something, and then they will start listening to what the crypto community actually wants, what they put to the table. Because before that, it's just a nuisance. It's just something that they don't understand. It's like, what? Technology, difficult, Russia, blah, blah, blah. Russian money, scary, never mind. So you have to get to a point where people actually, from society, they start using it. They're like, and then politicians will move, I think. It's always the other way around. I've never in my political life encountered something that is even remotely resembling of an intellectual exchange in politics. It does not exist. They're not interested in it. And if they would recognize one, they would walk away from it. They would be disgusted by it, because that is not why they went into politics. They went into politics because they're interested in power. And arguments and positions and ideological standpoints are instrumental for them to that power. They're not interested in the ideology, they're not interested in the arguments, they're not interested in ideals, they're not even interested in the country. They couldn't care less, because then they become international politicians and they'll have an international salary and an international status. So we have to understand, we guys are interested in arguments, but we are exceptions. We are a rare anomaly amongst normal
that or next year
normal pattern in society.
That or next year we have 10,000 people here, and we can discuss how to make that happen, because I like where this is going in terms of like flipping the Netherlands. I would like to open the Slido, please, because we have a few minutes left, and I want to see and take some questions from the audience.
Code is speech and should be protected.
Yes, thank you. All right, no new questions here. Let me see.
And I think don't underestimate the stifling effect of censorship. It's been horrendous for people. Really, I just wanted to say that again.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it more as well with Aaron Day coming and the next panel as well. Maybe some closing remarks then for you guys. How can we, from each of your perspective, we've touched on many different things right now. Adoption, not trusting politicians, CeFi, this mix of old finance and touching on crypto. What can we do to make the Netherlands great again? Yeah, that's a good one. You have to.
Yeah, I mentioned Silk Road, and I think the wonderful thing about it was that it created a use case, an everyday use case with a very clear-cut argument. Lots of drugs, lots of substances are illegal for rather ridiculous reasons. Here's a way we can exchange them. Lots of people want them. It's a viable economic model. It's something that lots of people started using. And somebody here says, like, what would you like to say that you cannot say? What would you like to do that you cannot do? These are the relevant questions, of course, but they're also questions that the masses ask themselves. They're the same kind of questions that people would say, are you really so obsessed about beauty? I mean, normal high-rise buildings, they're fine, right? But then we would never have Paris. We would never have the old city center of Amsterdam. It's something that only a very few people are interested in, but all of us benefit from it. And that is that is what all of us, I think, have to think about. Real-life use cases of something that is ultimately only intelligible to a very small amount of people. And I'm sure that if we dedicate a day or an afternoon to that, we would be able to think of many, many such examples and cases. And I'm sure, I think that there's a great future for crypto. I really believe in it. And I just want to urge you all to keep pushing.
Thank you. Steve, go ahead.
There's one question about direct democracy and that kind of stuff. I would recommend to go back to the French philosophers Deleuze and Foucault, who made an experiment around '68 in prisons for direct democracy. There was no hierarchy at all. Everybody was equal, had equal voting in there. They had no blockchain, but the whole setup was already based on that direct democracy model. So if you have the technical possibilities for that, it could be. But you still have to wonder whether from an intellectual point of view, it's still a democracy. It's a voting, it's a representation kind of system, but they didn't have representatives in the sense that they would then have power to make decisions over you. And that's the big problem about democracy, that as soon as you vote for somebody, then this person has this power to do things in your name. And how do you get that away from the whole system? That's a huge difficulty. Secondly, everybody is always linking economy and politics together, but they are different. Hayek already said it quite clearly. There's a difference between dominium, which is politics, and imperium. The other way around. Imperium is really politics, dominium is economic. We are economic people are acting differently from politics. Voting is, everybody is just happy when they can give the vote to some idiot who wants to sit in one of the parliaments. I mean, wonderful. You take all the problems, you make the solutions. I don't give a damn anyhow. I will do my own life. So, but you cannot do it from an economic point of view, because if you have nothing else in your supermarket anymore, or you have money, but the money is inflated so you can't buy anything anymore, everybody feels it. And that's a completely different story. So please separate that. And when at the top they come together and start seeing, then it goes wrong. That's what I explained to you. But yes, I believed in direct democracy, but it will not be a kind of democratic system when you start using blockchain. It will be much more an influencing on what are we doing.
There was one question that was that I marked as answered, but this will be my last question. Can I make the case and ask all of you to speak for Alexey within whatever sphere of influence you may have, to make the case for him, to make sure that when his appeal takes place, that I can reassure people that the Netherlands can still be a place for developers and for privacy builders to be in.
Okay, yeah?
Yes?
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you.
I think all of us here will continue to support Alexey and Tornado Cash and privacy and all of the good that that stands for. Because by supporting crypto, we support freedom. And by supporting freedom, we support prosperity and innovation. And that makes us all better off.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.